We don't black down. We level up.
Level up, 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 level up.
Police coming straight from the underground. A young nigga got it bad cause I'm brown. And not the other color, so police think they have the authority to kill a minority. Oh, that is cause I ain't the one for a punk motherfucker with a badge and a gun to be beaten on. And thrown in jail, we can go toe to toe in the middle of a sale. Come with me cause I'm a teenager with a little bit of gold and a pager. Searching my car, looking for the product. Thinking every nigga in there selling narcotics. You rather see me in the pen than me and Lorenzo rolling in a benzo. Be the police out of shape, and when I finish, bring the yellow tape to take off the scene of the slaughter. Still getting swole up bread and water. I don't know if they fags or what. Searching again down and grabbing his nuts, and on the other hand, without a gun, they can't get none. But don't let it be a black and a white one, cause they'll slam you down to the street top. Black police showing out for the white cop. Ice Cube will swarm.
KBLA Talk 1580. We're not abolitionists, but I'm just saying. All right, I'm pleased to welcome into the space this morning the attorney, actually, for Officer Taisyn Crutchfield. He is an attorney at Goldberg and Gage, where they say they pride themselves on providing high-quality service for their clients. He's been an attorney since 1985 and one of the founding partners of that firm. Attorney Bradley Gage, welcome.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So you guys have a big press conference on tomorrow, in this case, a case that a lot of folks are actually paying attention to, unlike many police abuse cases of late or police misconduct or scandal type situations that don't get the coverage. The spotlight has been pretty bright on this. What can we be expecting tomorrow? I know you're not going to tell me everything, but give me some idea of what we might be, what the next chapter might be here.
We're going to present evidence of continuing retaliation against Officer Crutchfield. We're also going to present evidence in another governmental claim on behalf of other officers who have been treated wrongfully by the Pasadena Police Department and even subjected to assault by a commanding officer in one case.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So are all of these related to each other? Can we say that in any way? Can you share like how we can maybe able to connect the dots here?
Sure. You have a group of black officers who are being subjected to discrimination, harassment, retaliation, and assault. They're all under the same police department and the same police chief.
Mm. So when you say ongoing harm or ongoing harassment to Officer Crutchfield, she is back on the job. So are we talking about ongoing while she was on administrative leave? Are we talking about since she's been on the job, or both?
It's both. Since she has come back, she has been subjected to retaliation, lack of backup on a call, a serious call, which we'll discuss further tomorrow. She has been thus ostracized and spoken about in the department in a negative fashion.
Right. So some folks will just say, well, why doesn't she just leave? I mean, she's a young, talented individual. Why not just go to another department somewhere and get out of Pasadena? And I'm sure the same could be said about the other officers who we might be hearing from tomorrow as well.
In law enforcement, once you become a pickle, you don't return to being a cucumber. And by that, I mean, once you have brought forth these charges, they stick with you like super glue.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you don't find other work.
You got a jacket on you.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Good morning, Mr. Gage. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, James?
Doing great. Why have you like? Why is this case important to you, and why have you pulled out all your resources?
Well, all my cases are important, but this one stands out because you have such a promising young woman who has accomplished so much in her life, being Miss Eugene, Oregon, competing for Miss America, having degrees in criminology, both bachelor's and master's, a person who has helped to bridge the divide that has erupted between the community and law enforcement to heal the wounds and build trust that we need for protection of members of the community and public safety. So when you have such a bright, rising young star who does the right thing, stopping an officer who she believed was engaged in unnecessary and excessive force, and then she has this kind of repercussions, it has to be brought out to the limelight, because the only way we're going to solve problems between law enforcement and the community and help protect all of us is if we recruit promising young people like Taisyn Crutchfield, like Jarvis Shelby, and those that went before them. And so we want to bring this out, bring the spotlight on Pasadena, which has a history of allegations of racism, of calling officers that have arrived that were black after years of no promotions, calling them token and other derogatory terms. So we have to stop this and bring change.
Yeah, when we continue this conversation, well, actually, let me get into it right now. Here's the thing, Attorney Gage. I think what a previous caller, Rosie Milligan, said is it feels like we're fighting the same battle over and over and over again, right? You have brought other cases, and not that every case you do is a police case. As we discussed, you've done plenty of employment type cases, other types of cases. How do we get beyond kind of going through Groundhog Day and having the same conversation over and over again?
It takes time, stamina, dedication. The more that we bring the light on these departments and the more multi-million-dollar verdicts that we get against them, the more change is going to occur. If you get a verdict on a case like this at $20 or $30 million, all of a sudden people pay attention. And unfortunately, sometimes the only way to stop racism in America is with large monetary damage payouts that hit the pocketbooks of the politicians, because then they pay attention. It may take a couple of times, but
or 100 or 1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, would it make a difference if there was personal liability like doctors have, malpractice? I mean, should officers have, I guess that doesn't apply really in this case, but it could, because those who, did not comply. I mean, theoretically, de-escalation is department policies, right?
It's also state law.
So how does
the California Post requires it?
Yeah, that's right. So how does Officer Crutchfield end up being the one that's on leave and that appears to have a problem with her employer, and the officers that were not, complying with de-escalation, we don't know what happened to them, right? If anything.
We don't believe anything happened to the officer that engaged in escalation, although I am informed that this is not the only case against him. So
from a legal perspective, how is that even possible? The one that's following the law is the one that's in trouble.
You have phrases like the thin blue line, code of silence, circling the wagons, all of which apply in these kinds of cases. And that is, when you have an officer who engages in excessive force, other officers are expected just to stand by, do nothing, stay silent. Officer Crutchfield broke that code of silence by intervening and de-escalating.
By following the law, right?
Right. By following the law.
What a reasonable officer would do.
What a reasonable officer should do. It's not often what a reasonable officer does do.
It makes my head explode, Attorney Gage, because I'm thinking about how these departments, I'll think about the LAPD. I don't know if this is true of Pasadena, but I bet you it is. They're constantly complaining about how they can't get enough recruits. Nobody wants to be a cop anymore. Morale is down, blah, 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 blah. But if what you're teaching is that you can't join the force if you're idealistic, if your plan is to help the community, if you want to be that good cop, whatever, that the system will not tolerate that. Isn't that the definition of systemic bias problem? And isn't that the anti-recruitment message for the type of officers that you claim to want more of?
Exactly. In fact, I've had that conversation recently with several sheriffs and police chiefs where they said, we talked about how doing civil rights and also representing good officers goes hand in hand. Some folks think that if you do civil rights, you can't also represent police officers. But the benefit is you get rid of the bad officers in civil rights cases, and then you try to retain those good officers like Officer Crutchfield, like Jarvis Shelby, so that then you can start having role models that other good folks will say, hey, being a police officer is good again.
Well, yeah, and I think it goes beyond role models, too, because it exposes the systemic issues that prevent officers of conscience, people who want to support it. So it's not just an individual choice. It's what is the system set up to do? The only way you can change what the system is set up to do is to expose the ways in which it continually supports the outcomes that do not serve the community, especially, low-income people, black people, and other BIPOC people.
Well, what's interesting, Dominique, is we were talking a little bit earlier about the Peace Officers Bill of Rights, right?
Yeah.
And that being ratified, right? And some would say abolished, right? Well, in this instance, Attorney Gage and Attorney Crump are arguing that those same things that we were just talking about being ratified and abolished are being violated as it applies to Officer Crutchfield. So there's an interesting kind of dichotomy in all of it. Yeah,
so basically what you're saying that the officer's Bill of Rights is not being applied to Officer Crutchfield. And we'd have to say, wonder why. Continuing our conversation with Attorney Bradley Gage and James Farr, the journalist, when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Turning my pain into purpose is pretty much what I have done to start this foundation.
In August 2020, after the death of George Floyd, Bridget Floyd and other family members established the George Floyd Memorial Foundation in support of the Black community.
It's going to take more than just us as a foundation. It's going to take the community, the world, to make a change.
Fight for racial justice for the Black community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age. But there is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
Save big every day during Lowe's 25 Days of Deals. Right now, get these can't-miss deals on appliances. Get up to 30% off, plus save up to an extra $750 on select major appliances. And with Lowe's Pay, you can buy now and pay later to get instant payment options for online purchases. Shop these savings, because Lowe's knows deals every day. Valid through 12/13. Appliance savings vary based on purchase amount. Exclusions apply while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for details. Subject to credit approval.
King C. Gillette knows you're dedicated to your barbershop routine.
But what about after? What's your routine for facial hair to avoid dry skin, itching, and beard rough? Well, the King C. Gillette Beard Oil is a perfect fit for making your beard feel as good as it looks. It softens your facial hair and moisturizes to help prevent itch due to dry skin. Get facial hair that feels as good as it looks. Just trim, wash, and soften with King C. Gillette.
Hello?
Man, where are you? I thought you were coming.
I can't. I'm in bed with the flu.
The flu? Whoa. Grandma's about to crowd surf. Man, I'll call you back.
Don't get stuck at home with the flu. A flu shot is safe, effective, and you can get it at the same time as your COVID-19 vaccine. A flu shot is the best way to prevent the flu and its potentially serious complications. Don't get flu FOMO. Learn more at getmyflushot.org.
Brought to you by the AMA, CDC, and the Ad Council.
Only 1 in 5 people with autism are employed, despite many having the skill set and desire to work.
Maybe it's because employers don't know what kind of jobs they can do. Like, what about a programmer?
That's a job for someone with autism.
How about a healthcare worker?
Yep, that is too. People with autism can do a lot of different jobs, but often get overlooked due to outdated stigmas. Introducing WIN by Autism Speaks. We help businesses lead the way in inclusive hiring.
What about a ranch hand?
To learn more, go to autismspeaks.org/win.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
And we are talking with Attorney Bradley Gage. James Farr, from the LA Progressive, has been kind enough to stay with me in the conversation. Attorney Gage, aside from being the attorney for Taisyn Crutchfield, earned what is reportedly the largest verdict ever in Burbank Superior Court, a First Amendment retaliation case against the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. You guys you and Attorney Crump are having this press conference tomorrow, where you've already stated that we'll hear from some other folks, some other officers, and hear about the ongoing harm to Officer Taisyn Crutchfield. Tell me more about the case of Jarvis Shelby.
Jarvis Shelby is another African-American police officer who has been subjected to discrimination, harassment, and retaliation in a couple of ways. One is that he was passed over for promotion to corporal. Every person that took that test, with the exception of one other individual, was promoted. But more significantly, and what we'll be talking about in details tomorrow, is he was subjected to a headlock by a commanding officer who was white, and as a result of that was seriously injured, and he's been unable to work. And yet the commander remains working, not even on admin leave.
So, I guess what is the best case scenario outcome for Officer Shelby, for Officer Crutchfield? What is a win here for the individual officers and for the public?
Well, for the public, a win is to make a change in the department so that black officers are treated fairly on the one hand, and that the community is treated justly on the other, so that when officers bring up issues of excessive force, that they are respected, that their claims are investigated, and that they are not punished because of it.
Yeah.
And
are we talking about a consent decree? Because I know you said if you bring up enough million and multi-million dollar cases that will eventually change the culture. Very, very eventually. I mean, so how do you see that? Is it something that's needed by the city of Pasadena Police Department?
Ideally, having a consent decree will help implement, but that doesn't always happen. For example, we have a case against the Beverly Hills Police Department right now, Brad Gage Law and Ben Crump Law together. And there we have 1,086 Black American plaintiffs, and that's because in a 2-year time frame, there were 1,088 Black Americans arrested by Beverly Hills PD, and only 2 of them were convicted. And that was after a consent decree had been entered into. So it doesn't always help. We are seeking a much tougher consent decree now for the Beverly Hills Police Department because racial profiling is unacceptable. It violates the law. It violates equal protection.
So basically, you're representing all of the people that were arrested by Beverly Hills that weren't not convicted of anything, which is over almost 1,100 people.
They weren't just arrested, Dominique. You know, you see in the documents they were stalked, they were hunted, they were tracked. It isn't just as innocuous as, you know, a traffic stop and someone pulled over. It's right there in the documents that they were targeting with surveillance, drone, you name it, pulling people over in Ubers. Like it's really disgusting what was happening.
I didn't even know they could pull you over in an Uber. I mean, I thought they could pull over the driver of the Uber, but they can just track you down in an Uber.
Mr. Gage can speak to that, but yeah.
Yeah, what you have is you have a number of individuals in Beverly Hills that got pulled over for driving while black, shopping while black, walking while black. During one task force for a couple of months, over 90% of the people that were arrested were African American, and the population of black people in Beverly Hills is under 2%.
Right.
So
that's the task force that was supposed to be about quality of life, right? If I remember correctly, so-called quality of life violations.
Exactly. And according to one officer's sworn testimony, black people were being pulled over because they were making the city look, quote, too ghetto, end quote.
Yeah.
And that's not justifiable ever.
Well, yeah, and it seems to be illegal.
It is.
What's your desired outcome there? I mean, other than a much tougher consent decree, what does justice look like for those 1,086 black people?
Well, in that case, we believe $500 million is justice because that will send a proper message to a very wealthy city that they have to change their evil ways.
Mm. What else should we be looking for? I know folks are invited. James pointed out the press conference is tomorrow, 11 o'clock at the Pasadena Police Department. What else should we be looking out for? It's in the days ahead, Attorney Gage, around these cases.
Well, we know that there are now at least 3 different black officers who have made allegations of assaultive behavior in the police department. One that was kicked violently in the leg, who had suffered a broken kneecap. One who was put into a headlock, who suffered injuries to his shoulder and his neck. And an older case in which a black officer was being trained, and his training officer gave money to an arrested suspect to fight with the black officer. So we're going to be talking about those cases and this widespread pattern and practice of engaging in violence towards black officers on the one hand and racial profiling and violence towards members of the community on the other hand, such as the town's kids.
And I know we only have about a minute left here, Attorney Gage, but if there is, in fact, a gang, criminal gang, or improper clique within the Pasadena Police Department, how will that be addressed?
Well, we are hearing allegations that there is a clique, good old boys, so to speak. And as we gather evidence on that, we will bring that into the light as well. I've done that against the LA County Sheriff's Department in the past with the Vikings and other alleged gangs there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being with us this morning and briefing us on what's going on with these really riveting cases in Pasadena, which go to the very heart of what it's going to take to change our law enforcement model in this country. James Farr, thanks for bringing this issue to the table and staying on top of it. It's much appreciated. Thank you both.
Thank you for having me. In Pasadena, don't let this choke your hope away.
Absolutely. Attorney Gage, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
News, traffic, and sports, and then it is the perfect time to call me. Let's unpack what we heard. Let's take a look at what else is going on around the nation. It is KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we celebrate Christmas, we celebrate you. Thank you for turning us on this year. Happy holidays.
Wow! Mommy's kissing Santa Claus!
I'm Ree Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In California, San Diego police are investigating a series of armed robberies. 4 African-American boys between the ages of 15 to 17, including 2 with guns, have reportedly been robbing area businesses. Police say a liquor store and 3 convenience stores were robbed by the teens. So far, no one has been hurt. The investigation continues. Most Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck say they expect to spend about the same amount or perhaps a little less this holiday season compared to last year. That's according to a new Forbes advisory survey that says close to half say they'll spend about the same, and nearly 1 in 5 said they plan to tighten their belts. And that's the latest. I'm Ree Harris on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Jet what you really want this holiday. The experience of a crowd-free private terminal at Burbank Airport. Check in 20 minutes before takeoff and land in hotspots like Denver, Boulder, Las Vegas, and more. Depart from the ordinary now with JSX Air.
Is this the takeoff? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers are on a 4-game winning streak. They held on last night to beat Portland by 5. Strong game from Kawhi Leonard, 34 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals. Kawhi has scored 75 points in the last 2 games. James Harden and Paul George had 20 points each. Quick turnaround for the Clippers. They play Sacramento tonight at Crypto.com. The Lakers are in Dallas tonight. First game for the Lakers since winning the in-season tournament Saturday night in Vegas. 4:30 tip-off on TNT. More bad news for the Chargers in a bad season. They will not have quarterback Justin Herbert for Thursday night's game against the Raiders in Vegas. Herbert has a fractured finger on his throwing hand. The Chargers are 5-8. Even if they won their last 4 games, they will not make the playoffs. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's the gift-giving season, and we have a gift for you. Visit us online at KBLA.store for holiday savings of 20% off all of our KBLA swag. For the best in merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store right now. And be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all our official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580, at 20% off, but only during the holiday season. Happy holidays.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. I was able to speak with Kate Luzio, former banking executive and now owner of Luminary, who partnered with Chase for this tour. She makes it her business to build community for business owners.
Yes, so I was a banker for 20 years before I decided to become an entrepreneur. 7 of those years were actually at JP Morgan Chase. One of the biggest things that I had going into my entrepreneurial journey was a big background in banking.
So what advice are you giving business owners looking for financial backing today?
So Chase brings in so much knowledge and the opportunity to understand what financial tools are out there for business owners to build, grow, and scale their business. A lot of business owners will say, well, I need to get a loan immediately. Well, you wouldn't just lend money to your friend if you didn't know why they needed it. I tell every business owner, you need a business plan, you need financial projections, you need a banker. Because you have to start building a relationship with a banker so that they get comfortable with how you're going to build that business and so that they can eventually support you in different ways.
Makes sense. So visit the Chase Community Center on Crenshaw and Vernon. Meet a banker today. Tell them about your business. I'm Maisha Cairo in the community for KBLA with JP Morgan Chase.
There are 1,000 ways to say it.
Nope. Knock it off. Shut it down. Dream on. No dice. Give it a rest. Not a chance.
Or just.
All text. You focus on the road.
As a passenger, you have the power to prevent an accident. There are 1,000 ways to stop a distracted driver. Choose one.
A message from CTIA.
Teachers are dynamic leaders shaping a new generation. They bring a variety of perspectives from diverse backgrounds, innovating how they teach to prepare students for our fast-changing world. They're skilled experts, discovering a universe of solutions, telling stories, inspiring, mentoring, connecting cultures, leading by example. Teaching is a journey that shapes lives. Are you ready? Explore teaching at teach.org, supported by the U.S. Department of Education and 1 million teachers of color.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
And it's not every day that you find me and Tavis Smiley drilling down on the same topic. True, we cover many national issues and interview the same lawmakers and, in some cases, artists and authors. But on yesterday, we both had pretty robust conversations around these university presidents whose jobs are in peril because of the performance they did in front of congressional committee around the anti-Semitism that's raising its ugly head on college campuses. And it is also corresponding to a rise in Islamophobia, which is terrible. Hate crimes, racism, white supremacy in all of its forms and fashions, of course, is terrible. But these folks were specifically meant to be addressing the anti-Semitism in their elite schools. And Claudine Gay, of course, the first Black woman president of Harvard University, is being called upon to step down. She had not done so. The influential members of the board, big money donors, pushing for her to be fired. More than 700 staff members rallied behind her, people that work at Harvard. I was talking about how she'd only been there a couple months, right, in the job, and it would be pretty horrendous for her to be asked to step down. And listening to Tavis and Ruben Navarrete on yesterday, I saw some good points on both sides, although typically, as is typical, I was much more in alignment with what Tavis Smiley was saying. Not to say that she handled herself right or that those presidents did the best job with the hearing. It is easier to say than to do, right? It's harder than it looks to be in that type of situation. And also, I mean, I have been in DEI before, right? When I first moved to Los Angeles, I was a community action director in a situation where there was an institution under a lot of community pressure and attack. And I know the way those meetings go. You get in a room with lawyers and other administrators and, other high-level executives or movers and shakers in an institution, and they start coaching you like you were a football quarterback. You need to say this, don't say this. I think that they did know they were going into a hostile environment, and they probably prepped them and possibly over-prepped them. And I saw an editorial at LA Times that says that university presidents are meant to be moral leaders and not bureaucratic gaslighters. But actually, that's not really true. I mean, in a perfect world, maybe it's true, but anyone who's attended a university as a student and done protests, right? Sit-ins like we used to do all the time at San Francisco State. We were always protesting, sitting in, rallying, lobbying, and boycotting to keep our School of Ethnic Studies funded and in good standing. Well, you know that the gaslighting and sort of bureaucratic blah, blah, blah of these university administrators is on full display in those types of situations. That said, you say, well, yeah, her response was wrong, as was that of the other two presidents, because you have to start with, regardless of what the policy currently says, it is wrong to call for the genocide of a people. It is wrong to call for the genocide of Israeli people. It is wrong to call for the genocide of Jewish people, of any people. That's where you have to start. And they didn't do that. And I think for all of us armchair testifiers, that's what we think we would have said. But you don't know what you would have said if some, right-wing conservative lawmaker is badgering you, setting you up, pestering you. That said, as of today, the board of Harvard University says that President Claudine Gay will keep her job. That's what they're saying today. They say that the board is reaffirming their support for her leadership and that extensive deliberations can affirm their confidence that President Gay is the right leader to help our community heal and address serious societal issues, blah, blah, blah. This after the University of Pennsylvania president announced her own resignation a couple days ago, Elizabeth McGill. And MIT President Sally Kornbluth has also indicated she won't step down. She'll be there. That MIT was quick to put out a statement that they support her and that she will not be stepping down. Tavis made the point that President Gay apologized and therefore we should accept her apology and move forward. I think, I understand that. I don't, know what liability comes with that apology. But I believe one of the reasons the universities are standing behind these women is because they had the very meetings I'm talking about where they get in a war room. You're there with... I've been in this situation in several different similar meetings where I was a DEI person in a company that was under attack, and we were going to be going into a meeting in hostile territory. And you've got people telling you, say this, don't say that, say it like this. Well, what if they do this? And if they do X, we do Y. It's a whole role play scenario that goes down. And I believe she followed what they told her to do. And I believe Kornbluth probably followed what they told her to do. Lesson learned for Dr. Claudine Gay is that you also have to keep your common sense, your moral compass, your wits about you. And that is a lot easier said than done, not just in a hostile environment in Congress, in the national spotlight, which you may or may not be used to, under attack on social media, but also in the especially fraught arena that is any conversation regarding Israel and Palestine, any conversation regarding the Middle East, where you see people being misquoted, you see people having conversations in bad faith, twisting one another's words, relying on talking points, right, that demonize one side in a way that is not intellectually honest. Intellectual honesty. Can we get to that when we talk about what's happening in Gaza? There's people that say they don't want to call it a war because on the one side you have Hamas, which is on paper the leadership, the governance of Gaza, but still functioning as an underground group with tunnels and railroads, and you have Israel, tunnels and hideouts, and then you have Israel, which is, I believe, the 15th largest military in the world, highly effective, highly funded, both from their own treasury and the treasury of the United States of America. So it's like you have two sides that are not equal in standing. That said, whatever it is, a conflict, a humanitarian crisis, which seems to be the acceptable language that you can say, a slaughter, whatever it is fraught. And being able to have a conversation, a diplomatic negotiation, a discourse that leads towards progress instead of around and around in a cycle and spiral of hate, dishonesty, and endless talking points is not the way forward. How do we get to intellectual honesty? First of all, we have to start with abolishing or at least understanding some of these talking points, right? The talking point that I was shocked to hear Bill Maher say on his show, which, I'm a fan and a follower of Bill Maher, although I don't agree with him on everything for sure. He hates God, for example. Just one example. But, the talking point he said was that if you are critical of the Israeli government, that means you are anti-Semitic. That if you're critical of Benjamin Netanyahu, that means you hate Jewish people. And that's not intellectually honest. That is not intellectually honest. It is a talking point that's usually more implied than blatantly said, but Mr. Maher said it. And it's something we cannot just let that stand. Because what it does is it creates a situation where you cannot have a productive diplomatic exchange that leads to whether it's a one state with rights for all or two states with real sovereignty and autonomy for both countries, both nations, wherever it is that we need to get to so we can get off the horrifying, bloody merry-go-round of this conflict. 800-920-1580 is the perfect time to call me if you want to get in on the conversation, if you want to pull the lever on that freestyle phones, which means you can bring up anything and everything under the sun. KBLA Talk 1580. We always have a lot to talk about.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Scarlett Johansson. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. You can join the movement to end hunger by donating, volunteering, and advocating. Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
They are our love bugs and companions. They are our pets, our family, and they make life better. When we face unexpected challenges, so do our pets. That's why we're on a mission to support people and their pets. Whether donating a bag of kibble, sharing an Instagram post of a lost cat, or welcoming a foster pet into your home, every bit of kindness counts. Visit petsandpeopletogether.org to learn how to be a helper in your community. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Day one, the hardest day. The day you hear,
this is a type of blood cancer.
But day one is just one day. At the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, we are here to help you move past day one.
On day 45, I discovered an online community who shared great tips for in-treatment care.
On day 185, LLS helped me file my insurance claims properly.
To learn more and get help on day 2, day 28, or any day, please visit LLS.org or call 1-800-955-4572.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of This Light of Ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement, a dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This Light of Ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This Light of Ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Right now, you heard on yesterday that the former president, the guy I like to call he who shall not be named, saying he didn't want to testify. He's not going back to court in New York to testify in that fraud case against him and his organization. He said what he has to say, and making that announcement on Truth Social. I think it's interesting the way he's moving right now. Number one, as if he was still the president, and number two, as if this, he was in control. And I get that he's controlling the media narrative to an extent, and that his supporters are not abandoning him with these 91 serious charges against him, and also how he's fundraising around these issues. But that said, they are still serious matters with real consequences. Special Counsel Jack Smith says he plans to present the former president's cell phone data as evidence during that election interference case, the federal case. And he filed a notice yesterday morning saying prosecutors plan to call several expert witnesses during the trial to talk about what the former president was doing on his phone during and after January 6, 2021. That is testimony, that is evidence that I cannot wait to see. Who was he on the phone with? What was he telling them? How long were they talking? And how much more specificity can we get as far as what went on that day of the insurrection or the attempt to overthrow our government? One of the witnesses that Smith says he'll bring this is a quote from the brief, has extracted and processed data from White House cell phones used by Trump and specifically identified the periods of time when those devices were unlocked and Twitter was open. We are going to have even more to talk about, I can see, in 2024. I'm Dominique DiPrima for KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you a Christmas season that is merry and bright. Happy holidays.
Santa baby, Just slip a sable under the tree for me.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Diane from Michigan, a disabled senior citizen trying to get by. Henry from Florida, a veteran fighting to make ends meet. Elena from Arizona, a mother struggling to feed her daughter. Hi, I'm Connie Britton, and I support Feeding America because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year, like Diane, Henry, and Elena. Learn more at feedingamerica.org. Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
As crazy as it sounds, I almost feel like I have been neglecting the former president as his legal scenarios move through the courts because there's so much going on in the world and the nation. Do think it is important to remember this, especially during a time when Republicans are moving forward with the totally unjustified impeachment of President Joe Biden. Now, I have my issues with Mr. Biden at the moment, but I mean, you have no evidence, you got nothing, but you're going to move forward anyway. That said, the Supreme Court is apparently going to look at the former president's claim that he is immune to prosecution in this federal case because of being president. And this is something that was requested by Jack Smith, the prosecutor in that case, in order to leapfrog over appeals courts so that he could move forward with his case, because Trump's lawyers have already started this appeals process, and you know what they like to do. They like to slow walk everything, right? Just sue and sue and sue, or file and file and file, and that's been the MO of the former president before he was president. Just tie everything up in the courts, be litigious. In this case, they're saying that the Supreme Court will look at this in order to help the prosecutors determine whether or not they can go forward with the trial that's planned for March. Otherwise, this could end up being a scenario where it either is pushed until after the election or ends up being right in the middle of that election. And so this is interesting news from the point of view of, how these cases, these 91 different charges against the former president, how they play out in terms of the interaction with the election. Trump's lawyers were told by the Supreme Court they got to file those briefs by December 20th. And it looks like they are trying to. Now, we know this particular court is stacked by he who shall not be named in his favor. But that being said, this is an interesting moment where we could see a fast track here. And even though they are clearly what my dad used to describe them as, the extreme court, they're not always predictable. And they have tried, I think, given the fact that there's so much public pressure on them to show that they're ethical at a time when the Supreme Court has come up with this rather cheesy honor system of ethics, that it's possible that they may just quickly rule and state that the president is not immune from prosecution the former president, in order to move this election obstruction case forward in time for the March deadline, which Smith and his team have been preparing for. This is a rare move to say, look, we want to jump over these appeals courts and go straight to the Supreme Court. But if they don't do that, it could really be pushed past the election, because the Supreme Court has their normal term in June. If they didn't get to it by then, if it's still in the appeals courts, Trump might get a pass until after the election. And Lord knows we don't want that. Looking forward to our deep dive today. That's next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Ree Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In California, San Diego police are investigating convenience stores were robbed by the teens. So far, no